For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. And Cayman Pharmacy Group, with locations in West Base and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, ORETT CONNOR.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Friday, the first day of February 2019. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable, restful evening as well, and that you're on the go this morning. Those of you who have to be on the road, we again urge you to be extremely cautious. If you're driving, if you're walking, if you're cycling on the road, please be extremely cautious. For those of you who are driving vehicles on the road, we ask you to be courteous, careful, and observe the rules of the road as well. Roads are dry out there this morning. I felt a little light drizzle, so I'm not sure whether or not we will get any showers today. I believe there is a 30% chance of rain during the course of the day. So that is pretty low, but it is quite possible. So if it starts to rain out there and if you're on the roads, then you want, again, be extremely careful when driving. Make sure that you adjust your driving to suit the weather conditions as well. I want to thank you, our listening and viewing audience, for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, ORETT CONNOR, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. And that will change today. I will pause there for a second. That will change today. You are now welcome to join me from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. For the Record will be going until 10 o'clock in the mornings now. Not only will For the Record be going until 10 in the morning, but our news segment will be shortened and we will have a maximum of 10 minutes of news as well. That is to give you, our listening and viewing audience, additional time to either participate in calling in or simply by listening in. And we will ensure, we commit to you, that we will continue to have quality discussions, quality programming when it comes to bringing things to you. So that commitment is there, and as a result of that, we are now extended until 10 a.m. So you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. During that period, our phone lines will be open, and there will always be someone there waiting to take your calls. Normally, if it is not the beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson, it's the voice of DJ Lynn or the voice of Silver Fox. And this morning, it's my pleasure to have Silver Fox behind the controls with us. You can call us on our toll-free number, provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at fortherecord. That is one word, fortherecord at candw.ky. You can also WhatsApp us at 925 3261, where we encourage you to send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show as well. And of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. We will soon have in the studio with us the leader of the opposition, Honorable D. Ezard Miller. He will be with us this morning. Not sure if he's prepared to go until 10 o'clock because we sort of like kept this under wraps for a while. But I did point out to you at the close of the show on Wednesday that I had a big announcement to make. So, for us, it is a big announcement. And I trust that for you, it is the same as well, because many of you have called in and said that you would like to see the show extended until 10 o'clock. So that has now been done, and you're welcome to continue to participate with us for that longer period of time as well. I'm sure that there are many things that will be discussed this morning. I want to very briefly touch on the refugee situation in the Cayman Islands, or those that I refer to in many instances as economic migrants. We have seen in the news quite recently about a hunger strike, or hunger strikes that were taking place by some of the Cuban migrants who are here. And I think it's mainly to protest not the format, but our whole asylum procedures and policies, whether or not it takes too long for political asylum requests to be considered. Now, if we look back at the history of political asylum in the Cayman Islands, an official political asylum, prior to the 2000s, I don't remember the year, I would have to look it up, but there was nothing in our immigration law that spoke to political asylum or refugee status. That issue came to the fore in 1996, 95, 96, 97, that area, when we had that influx of economic migrants from Cuba in the Cayman Islands. During the Clinton administration, when the floodgates were open, they were open during the Carter administration as well, but the floodgates were open in Cuba. People were allowed to leave. Our government was able to strike, I guess along with the UK government, we were able to strike a deal with the Americans to relocate the Cuban refugees at Guantanamo Bay. That was done, but also the UK government indicated to the government of the Cayman Islands that we had to seem to be doing our part, and we needed to grant refugee status to some of those persons who were here as well. And at that point in time, we initiated the process. We had to get some advice from UNHCR. We also, not UNHCR, from the Refugee Agency, UN High Commission for Refugees. Yes. And we basically had an ad hoc program in place where we followed all of the protocols and we granted refugee status to some Cubans. Some of them are no longer here. Some are still here. Many, basically, as was suspected, were looking really to get on to the United States or to some other country as well. But I'm going to pause that discussion for a while because we do have a caller, and we certainly give our callers here on For the Record priority. So let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Mr. Moderator, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I was listening to your very interesting show on Wednesday morning. And I also listened to National Heroes Day celebration.
Yes, sir.
My purpose for calling this morning, I want to correct an error that I heard regarding the first political party. I think that the person reading on National Heroes Day said the first political party was formed by Mr. Orman Patton in 1962. While it is true that Mr. Orman had perhaps the most successful political party, he was not the first.
Okay.
In August, on August the 8th, 1958, the Cayman Vanguard Party, actually it was called the Cayman Vanguard Progressive Party.
And that was the 8th of August?
8th of August, 1958.
Mm-hmm.
The principals of that party, of whom were Warren Connor, the president, William Nixon, vice president, Sidney Pierce, secretary, Florence Cayasso, I believe that's the lady we call Dania.
Miss Dania, yes,
who's a cousin of mine, was the assistant secretary, and Bertram Ebanks was the treasurer.
Okay.
So they registered their party on August the 8th, 1958, by informing Commissioner Donald that they had formed this party called the Cayman Vanguard Progressive Party. They proceeded to, and there were many other prominent people, including Dr. Rose, who was then our pharmacist or dispenser, and they proceeded to contest the election later that year. Regrettably, although they had a progressive manifesto and campaigned well, the merchant establishment did not allow these predominant black people to form a party, to have a say in political affairs, and they did not win one seat.
Wow.
So that's by way of correction, that they were the National Democratic Party, of which Mr. Orman Patton was the founder and leader, was not the first. Cayman Vanguard Progressive Party was indeed the first.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Borden, for that additional information and correction, and that certainly will, spur me now to do some additional research myself there. I want to thank you for that.
Please do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, sir. Have a great day. One of our listeners has written in and said, great news on the New Times. And then they have a question. Is there a performance clause in the airport renovation contract? If not, why not? I will pose that question to see if Mr. Miller has any information on that. We know that at some point in time there was a dearth of information as far as he was concerned, not much that he could get in relation to what was happening at the airport, the contract, even to get a walk through of the airport other than when he was traveling. I don't know if that has changed now, whether or not that information is also in the Auditor General's report on the airport project as well. So we will look into that for that listener who has written in asking that question as well. But it wouldn't, to me, from my layman's viewpoint, it wouldn't be really any sort of a contract if it didn't have some sort of performance clause in it. And you would have trusted that contracts of that nature would have been vetted from a legal standpoint before they were even the ink was even placed on the paper as well. So we trust that, but we will try to find that information out for you as well. Very quickly, getting back to the refugee situation. So my point really is that we have economic migrants here in the Cayman Islands. They're making demands. They're making demands that they couldn't make in their own country, and I shouldn't disparage them for that because, in some instances their country may not allow for that. But the political situation has changed in Cuba. The economic situation has changed in Cuba to a certain extent as well. I believe that it would be prudent for our government to, at this point in time, make some sort of a statement to clarify that as far as the government is concerned, that Cuba is no longer deemed to be the country that it was in the past. They have now immigration laws that allow people to leave Cuba, but they have to leave legally. So people are not restricted from leaving. And as a result of that, our view of Cuba has changed. And based on that, our approach to asylum requests will be strictly on international standards and not based on any pressures from outside or inside the Cayman Islands to grant political asylum simply because we need to look good. We need to point out that there is free, unfettered, to a certain extent, travel between Cuba and other countries. If you require a visa to go to some other country when you're leaving Cuba, then you have to have that visa. There are some countries that don't require it, and as long as you have your ticket and there are no stop measures against you in Cuba, they're allowed to travel. So I think that we need to reposition ourselves. We need to restate our position as far as it comes to our view of Cuba, and as a result, that our approach to political asylum requests will be strictly adhered to. We don't want to stretch the imagination or stretch the rules. The person must have a well-founded, and I will repeat that, well-founded fear of persecution based on their race, religion, or political beliefs. Well-founded, not just simply say that I am and I was involved in this political party and leave it at that, because the refugee protocols and rules are pretty liberal, and we know based on the history of the world and the impact of wars why that was done. I believe that we need to take a different approach now, and we need to look at it country by country, region by region as well. Let's take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas. Angelia Jareen Connor, Connolly. Certificate of Honor, 1900-2001. Miss Angelia was a lifelong member of the Bordentown Webster Memorial Church. She was an ordained elder who regularly visited the sick and shut-in. She was a Sunday school teacher and superintendent, a charter member of the Women's Missionary Society, now called Women's Fellowship, and a leader of the Girls Brigade. Miss Angelia was awarded the Certificate and Badge of Honor in 1974. She administered the funds of the Friendly Society to the poor of Bordentown. Her husband was Mr. Newman Connolly, a teacher, and the couple had 3 children, Woodrow, Laurel, and Olivia.
Radio Cayman's Historical Facts Vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
When you need stability, think Business of the Year.
Considering a new career opportunity, think Best Place to Work.
When dependability matters, think Outstanding Workforce.
In need of a reliable financial partner? Think Bank of the Year.
When you seek excellence, think Cayman National.
No matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we always set the bar higher. That's why we are the most awarded bank in Cayman, and we are proud to be your
2018 Bank of the Year.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. That strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
It's 2019, and you know what they say, new year, new me?
Yeah, Bobo. For me, it's new year, new car.
For real? What you thinking of buying?
The new RAV4 from Vampt Motors. It's one of the safest compact SUVs out there with enough room inside, which is good for my family and convincing my wife we need this. Plus, it's fuel efficient, fun to drive, and on top of that, it's on sale too.
Yeah, and I hear it's one of the best-selling SUVs on the market.
Cause you don't gotta spend more to do more. That's why I'm gonna get mine now, while they have a new stock to select from.
Do more in your RAV4. Save thousands on the all-new 2019 RAV4. Test drive yours today and see why the RAV4 is a best-selling SUV in Cayman. Available only at Vampt Motors,
Hello,
Walkers Road.
I am Noel March, a small business owner in Georgetown for over 20 years. Small businesses depend on government to develop a quality infrastructure and environment that encourages entrepreneurs to create and grow local businesses, resulting in the creation of jobs and prosperity for Caymanians. Small businesses help drive our economy. Just as we have supported building the new airport, we must support the building of the new cargo and cruise port. It will give our tourism industry the opportunity to grow and Caymanian entrepreneurs the chance to shine. Support the port. Support our tourism.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record with your host, ORETT CONNOR.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. And I want to remind you that For the Record will be continuing until 10 o'clock this morning, and that is our new time now from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Just want to remind you of that. That doesn't mean now that those of you who like to call late now can call a little bit later. Still call in at your regular times, and you may get a little bit longer period of time to talk as well. It's good to know that we have another centenarian in the Cayman Islands, and you would have heard it earlier as well. I think Silver Fox, Mr. Paul Akaya, did mention it earlier, but someone has written in and said that I want to say birthday greetings, and I want to say 100 birthday greetings to Miss Ina Connor of East End. She's 100 years old today, and we want to wish her a happy 100th birthday. And we hope that you will live to see many, many more as well. I'm sure that she still has all of her mental faculties and everything else. And we want to wish her a very, very happy 100th birthday, as well. I want to comment on an editorial in the Caymanian Compass today, and it's a story that has been circulating. It was carried by other news outlets as well, and has to do with the the departure of the fire chief, Mr. David Hales. And the editorial is entitled The Alarming Departure of Fire Chief Hales. And I'm going to read just one paragraph, the first paragraph of that editorial, and it reads, "We will not waste space debating the propriety of departing Chief Fire David Hales departing Fire Chief David Hales receiving more than $40,000 in compensation pay accrued during his 3 years in the Cayman Islands, other than that it appears to be entirely proper and in line with the department practice." And then the second paragraph reads, "Of far more importance is the unauthorized disclosure to a media outlet of Chief Hales' confidential personnel records in the form of line item entries from the government's recording system." Now, I'm not sure what would be so personal about records from time recording system other than the hours that you put in and when and for what purpose. But I have scanned quickly but thoroughly over the entire editorial in the Caymanian Compass, and while they say that the compensation appears to be entirely proper and in line with departmental practice, they do not provide any evidence in terms of laws or regulations or directives that would support that claim that it is entirely in line with department practices. I know, or I knew, that there were times when heads of departments could not receive overtime or extra time. You basically were on duty 24 hours per day. If you were called out, you went. I'm not aware, and maybe that has changed, where heads of departments would be entitled to what would be considered overtime or call out time. That was something that was left to the rank and file. As a matter of fact, when I was in the immigration department, when I entered this civil service and immigration department in 1983, not even assistant chief immigration officers were getting overtime. At that point in time when I got there, and whether or not that rule was put specifically in place for me, but there was assistant chief immigration officers who were getting it before. Those were the days when, people would go out on raids on the street looking for people who were either remaining in the Cayman Islands illegally or working illegally. When I got there, I was told assistant chief immigration officers don't get overtime. I know of instances where chief officers, when they were called permanent secretaries, chief officers, traveling overseas. And if you're there for the weekend, or if you're traveling on the weekend, which would normally be your free time, there were officers who ensured that they got their extra days for those days that they were traveling on government business. Some people did that. Others didn't do it simply because they felt that they were properly compensated to begin with, and as a result of that, they didn't feel that they needed to be nickel and diming the government and the people of the Cayman Islands by these additional charges. But in this editorial, it is surprising that they talk about the quote-unquote confidential records, but have failed to address the whole issue that we're hearing about Mr. Hale's qualifications to be the chief fire officer in the Cayman Islands. They have also not mentioned anything about the failure to have a successor in place. So as a result of that, we now have to put out tenders, put out advertisements for someone to serve as interim chief for 1 year. So while they're talking about personal information, and maybe they feel a little bit, and when I say they, I'm talking about the Compass and their editorial board, if there is one. But they say that there is one. There's an editorial board. I don't know if it's a board of one or what. But I don't know if they're a little bit peed off simply because it wasn't leaked to them. They weren't the first ones to get it. I'm not sure whether or not the offer was put to them in terms of providing this information. But there are times when people need to be outed, situations need to be outed, and I believe this is one. So if the people on the editorial board of the Compass if they do have information in relation to how this falls to be entirely proper and in line with department practices, please provide that to your readers as well, to your audience. Please provide that to them as well. I believe that we've reached that time, 8 o'clock, where we're going to our 8 o'clock news. And remember now, the 8 o'clock news, maximum period of 10 minutes, and we will be back on the air. So please stay tuned. I know you don't won't change that dial, so I don't even have to say that to you. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back after the news.
Radio Cayman time check is now 7:59, or rather 8 o'clock. This time check is brought to you courtesy of our friends at Price Right. Live better for less.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman-Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
Access information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. A new chapter for what was the Immigration and Customs Department. As of today, they are Work and the Customs and Border Control Agency. CIGTV's Donna Bush.
Border Control officers will don new uniforms and work in sync with work on keeping our borders and islands as safe as possible. At a staff event on Wednesday morning, government dignitaries and other senior officials spoke to those in the room.
It is a privilege that we have to serve our government, our people, and each other. That is something that we must take very seriously. So before I go further, I want to sincerely thank all of you.
Leaders with the CBC Work, as well as the Ministry of Human Resources and Immigration, will extend its public information and education campaign to ensure all who are impacted by the changes are fully aware of the laws and the new regulations.
That's CIGTV's Donna Bush reporting. And a new robotics initiative has been launched aimed at inspiring young people in Cayman to be leaders in science and technology. More from Radio Cayman's Shanda Gallego.
DART Minds Inspired has partnered with REM, Caribbean Utilities Company, CUC, Digicel, and Health City Cayman Islands to bring FIRST robotics program to high school students here in Cayman. FIRST, which stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology, is a U.S.-based nonprofit organization that inspires young people to be leaders in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. According to a DART press release, DART Education Programs Manager Glenda McTaggart says the decision to introduce the program was prompted by the experiences of students Adrian Phillips Hernandez, Ethan Cronier, and Joe Alan Perez, who represented the Cayman Islands at last year's FIRST Global Challenge. DART CEO Mark Vandevel noted that nurturing local talent in the STEM subjects is essential to workforce development, adding as Cayman's economy continues to evolve, the local demand for STEM jobs, and to be more specific for jobs which use robotics and artificial intelligence, will continue to increase. Our organizations share a common goal in ensuring our young people are prepared to fill those roles. The 2019 FIRST program launches with a Rover Ruckus-themed inter-school robotics tournament this May, and it will serve as a prerequisite for nomination to the national team, which will represent the Cayman Islands at the 2019 FIRST Global Challenge. Shanda Gallego, Radio Cayman News.
In regional news, in Jamaica, Crime Stop is reporting a 67% increase in the number of arrests from tips received in 2018, resulting in an $8 million Jamaican payout to whistleblowers. According to Crime Stop, the arrests varied from lottery scamming to shooting with intent. The $8.28 million payout to whistleblowers last year was almost 4 times what it was in 2017. Some $6.46 million was paid out by the Ministry of National Security through Crime Stop under the Rewards for Guns program. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, who will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with David Austin. The United States is expected to announce it's suspending compliance with a key arms control agreement dating back to the Cold War, the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Washington says a cruise missile developed by Russia violates the terms of the treaty, something Moscow denies. India's governing BJP has announced a $10 billion cash scheme for farmers. The programme is seen as an attempt to tackle rural discontent ahead of a general election. 2 Reuters journalists jailed in Myanmar after exposing a massacre have appealed to the Supreme Court. Their convictions last year were condemned by rights groups. In South Africa, 3 students have been killed when a walkway collapsed at a school. They say many other children were injured in the incident near Johannesburg. The United Nations Refugee Agency says safe passage must be provided for civilians fleeing the fighting in northeastern Syria. The UNHCR says people leaving Deir el-Zur report having to struggle through minefields and open fighting. Prosecutors in Thailand have asked a criminal court to consider an extradition request from Bahrain for the detained footballer Hakim al-Araibi. Human rights groups say he'll be tortured if he's returned to Bahrain. BBC News.
Access information. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Good morning, Cayman. Let's take a look at your latest weather. Present temperature 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Last night's snow was at 73. Relative humidity 88%. Winds are out of the east-northeast at 10 knots. And the barometric pressure still, or rather at 30.00 and rising. Synopsis for this morning: moderate winds and seas are expected over the Cayman area for the next 24 hours in association with a high-pressure system over the southwest U.S. Forecast for today: partly cloudy to cloudy skies with a 30% chance of the afternoon showers. Temperatures will rise to the low 80s. Winds will be east to southeast 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. Later on tonight, partly cloudy skies, very little chances of showers. Temperatures will fall to the low 70s. Winds will be east to southeast at 5 to 10 knots, becoming east to northeast overnight and into tomorrow morning. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. High tide is coming up at 10:26 this morning. It's going to be low at 4:43 this afternoon and high again at 10:33 tonight. Sunset this evening is at 6:17. Sunrise for tomorrow at 7 a.m. And the outlook is for similar conditions through Sunday evening. That's your latest weather.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after,
Brit K protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after,
visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
Brit K, where people come first.
Taking a look at traffic conditions. Of course, east-west arterial is backed up with slow-moving traffic as you make your way into Georgetown. Shamrock Road, very much crazy as well, but it is moving along. Lidford-Pearson Highway, it's a little bit backed up just outside of the King's Gym roundabout, as well as Crew Road, slow-moving traffic into Georgetown. Once you get into Georgetown, Huldah Avenue, North Church Street, South Church Street, North Sound Road, those roads are very much busy with incoming traffic. Yesterday, Tibbetts Highway, very much busy as well. Buckle up and stay safe. Enjoy the ride into Georgetown.
The 15th annual Cayman Economic Outlook returns on February 28th for another year of educating, informing, and stimulating the local community, bringing together industry thought leaders and business professionals to explore their theme, Dynamic New World, Braving the Turmoil. Speakers include economist Norina Hertz, University of Oxford professor Ian Golden, digital revolution journalist Andreas Ekstrom, biotechnology futurist Jamie Metzel, and professional surfer Mark Matthews. Tickets are selling fast. Reserve your seat at rfceo.ky.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with ORETT Connor, continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I have now been joined in the studio by none other than the Honorable D. Ezard Miller, Leader of the Opposition. And on his way into the studio, he was listening in to For the Record. So he already has his homework assignment done that he received. We had two questions there, one in relation to the airport contract and the other one, we know that you may have additional information in relation to the fiasco with the fire chief as well. So, Mr. Miller, good morning. Welcome to the new version, the extended version of For the Record.
Yeah, of course, I have a 10 o'clock appointment, but I'll stay for as long as I can.
Sure.
Well, see, thanks for waiting on me and allowing me to come in late. I apologize for the public, but it's all 10 minutes makes all the difference in leaving our side.
Yes.
If you leave before 6:15, right, you can come into town in 35 minutes. If you don't leave till 6:30, it's an hour and a half.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, but that's the position.
Yeah.
But on the way in, I was listening, and I heard you ask some questions about the airport contract. Well, that's a military secret. So is the whole airport. From the opposition point of view, we have never been offered a tour of the facility. We never get invited. They had their topping off ceremony. They have all their functions up there. We don't get invited. I guess the ministers probably worried that people like myself and Mr. McLean, who have some experience around building and capital projects, might ask the wrong questions and they may get rather embarrassed. But it is obviously not a fixed price contract because according to the Owen Roberts Airport interim report that was done by the Auditor General, where by July we were already $10 million over budget. And 2-3 months behind, but you remember when they had the topping off ceremony, the minister made his big claim that they were still on budget and they would be finished before the 31st of December. Well, we're in February. We're so close to February. We are in February now. Today is the 1st of February, and it's still not finished. The only contract that I am aware of that was signed by the Cayman Islands government and a contractor, which had a fixed price and a penalty clause and a termination clause for performance, was the contract that I had. But I think the name of the law firm at the time was Richard and Duckworth.
Yeah.
Actually, it was on the Premier's old law firm.
Charles Adams, Richard and Duckworth.
Right. And in that clause, we had regular termination clause for clause. It was a fixed price. Anything past $10.7 million came out of Hurlston Construction pocket. If they did not finish the project, I think the date was the 28th of February 1994, they had to pay to the Health Services Authority $3,500 for every day they went over the fixed period as a penalty. And obviously, we don't have that in the airport contract. And that came as a result because when I was doing the dental clinic, I ran into some difficulties with the contractor. And when I called a meeting with the Public Works Department and the contractor and listened to the feeble excuses for being behind and the reluctance of the contractor to give a commitment to complete the project on time and on budget, I turned to the director of Public Works at the time and said, well, what's the termination clause in the contract? And he says, well, there's no termination clause. I said, are you mad? Right? At that time, they were using the standard case contract, which had obviously been prepared and modeled by the Private Sector Association. And there was no termination contract. So I made a vow then that any other capital project I did, it was going to have those things in it for protections of the public funds. So the airport is a fiasco as far as I'm concerned. And remember now, the Auditor General's $10 million overrun was up to about July. They hadn't started the expensive part of it yet. And I also took the opportunity to FOI. And when I send an FOIs, I don't use any fictitious name like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. I put D. Ezra Miller on it. And I got some information from them. The financials are redacted out of it, but the only reason they have to hide their financials is because they're so bad. If they were on budget, they'd be proud to tell you what they are. But in the minutes there are some other troubling things. One of the things that appeared to be consistently raised by the public works people on the project management team was they wanted to have internal tests done on the steel that was prescribed for the curve, that fancy half moon, whatever it's supposed to be, totally non-functional waste of money. And it doesn't appear that it was ever done. And if I was the minister, I would be extremely worried about that. One of the other things that came out of that FOI, because I asked for communications between the project management team and the board of the airport authority, and between vice versa, and between the project management team and the ministry, which there shouldn't be any communications under the public authorities law.
Okay.
Right? Because the ministry should not be managing the project. Right? Because remember the roles of the minister, the roles of cabinet, the roles of the ministry, the roles of the board, the role of the CEO are clearly identified in the public authorities law. So
you don't think that there should be any communication, or the communication should be restricted to, I'm sure that...
Communication should be between the ministry and the board if there's any on the project, not between the ministry and the project management team.
Okay.
And the ministry should not have representations on that team because it's interference.
Yeah.
Right? But this man tell me there's no communication. So I read back, so you mean there's no communication or there's no record of the communication? They said, Mike, there's no communication. And so when the hearings are held, and they're eventually going to be public hearings on their report, there is still some attempts to and some borderline legitimate reasons why we may not have the public hearings until the project is complete. But again, that negates the purpose of going into an interim audit. Because when the PAC and the Auditor General only deals with things after the fact, all you can do is make corrective recommendations for future recommendations. And remember, this is not the first time that the Auditor General went into that project. They went in when we did a major capitals project way back in 2016. And as a result of the findings there and information coming to us that the recommendations were not being implemented, we asked the Auditor General to consider going back and doing an update.
Okay.
And that's what this report that is causing all the trouble is about. So it's left to be seen what it is, but it's not, and the country should be concerned that if the ministry cannot manage what should have been a $56 million project, right, without these overruns and complications, how are they going to manage a $300 million port? Because that's going to be substantially more difficult to manage than this, because what's up? There's a simple little two-story building. Come on, man. But again, it goes back to when you don't put in the effort and the time to properly plan, right? The reason we could do a fixed price contract on the Dr. Horta construction was because we refused to give a certified bill of quantities. Because if you don't give a certified bill of quantities, right, other than change orders in design, where you can't claim. You can't make claims. But that's the problem. The building was never, I mean, clearly they started without proper planning approval, right? Which again, some little north side person starts to farm the home without their rate card, right? They come close on down, right? But here we have, because the report clearly says that the electrical application to the electrical department in Blind went in 14 times, before they could get it right. So there's a lot of, and most of it, again, is because there is too much, shall I say, fraternization between the ministry, right, and the project team and actual management of the project, instead of doing as the Public Authorities Law stipulates, that the management of that project is delegated to the board. The board has a responsibility, and the chairman and the board members are held accountable for overruns. Now that the minister's gotten all mixed up in it, who do you hold accountable? Has to be the minister.
Yep. For the benefit of our listening audience, you mentioned terminology, bill of, what was it?
Bill of quantities. Which is when you calculate, this wall is going to take 27 blocks, and it's going to take 3 sacks of cement to lay the blocks. In that case, we gave them the plans. We had our bill of quantities. We had a good idea where we're going to go.
They needed to do their own.
You do your own, and if you say it can take 20 blocks and it take 26, the 6 blocks is your problem, not mine. But if I tell you it's going to take 20, and I certify it as a bill of quantities, and it takes 26, I got to pay extra for the extra 6.
Right.
See?
Yes.
Big difference.
Yes. Thanks for explaining that.
Now let's talk about the fire chief.
Departing fire chief, yes. And I see also from an article in the Caymanian Compass that today that they will be announcing an acting fire chief sometime today, hopefully. That'll come before we go off the air at 10 o'clock. And if we do, if it does happen, then we will bring that information to you as well.
Now, just to take the compass back a little bit to 2 years ago, you will recall that the hiring of, what's his name, Mr. Halls, no?
Hales.
Mr. Hales was very controversial. There was lots of debating in Finance Committee, mostly led by Mr. McLean and myself at that time. And that was before elections, so it would be a little bit more than 2 years. Right. So we were told that the reason that Mr. Hales was hired was because he was coming from some training school in England, and therefore he would have the ability to bring all of our fire officers up to their international requirements and train up a successor. And the commitment was given in Finance Committee that would be completed in 2 years and he'd be gone. Because our concern was that he would be here for 10 years. Because when you give somebody like that the responsibility and the authority to train the successor, they simply do not train them. We're only human.
Yep.
Right? And the only reason they're here, is because they're better off here than they are where they're coming from. They ain't coming here with no altruistic reasons to help us poor people, islanders down here. They come in here because they are going to be better off economically, socially, and everywhere else. So let's put that out clearly. Now, to come to the end of his contract, and we don't have anybody who's trained up, right? Instead of him getting a payment, he should have got a salary deduction, right? Because he hadn't performed. Right? Because the number one objective for him, as it was explained to us, was to train a successor, right? Information I have suggests that he got more training while he was here for the 2 years than anybody else, right? Secondly, we diluted the responsibilities and the workload of the chief fire officer under him. Because remember, we sent an HR person over there now, right? We have a deputy chief who is totally responsible for administration, right? And then you can tell me the man will claim $48,000 in overtime, and some of it is in 15-minute allotments. Now, let me tell you something. It's not only in the public service, but it's in the private sector as well. And I promise you, it's in the Compass as well. Their managers don't get overtime if they got to work 15 minutes over to finish some paper, right? So this will also come up in Public Accounts Committee, and we want to know what is the justification and what is the statutory and legal authority that this man was compensated for his time. Because remember, up until last year, or around about the same time he was hired, we had many Caymanian firemen, rank and file, who had ranked up some as much as 6 months.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In comp time, right? Because they had to work overtime, because we were short-staffed, because we wouldn't make them hire anybody because of the austerity measures, remember? And what they were offered. As I recall,
50 cents on the dollar.
There was a big announcement that, we're going to treat these people better than we ever treated them by ourselves. We offer them 50 cents on the dollar. Right? And now you're making this man rack up his time in 15-minute claims to get up and you give him a check to leave it. No. Something wrong.
I know from a personal standpoint, when I was chief immigration officer and I had to deal directly then, I couldn't designate it, assign it to someone else, temporary work permits. I'd come in early in the mornings, an hour or even more before opening, and leave late at nights to ensure that those temporaries were all processed. So that when the staff came in the morning, they would have them there to be issued. Never claimed overtime. I couldn't claim.
You had no right to claim
overtime.
it?
No right to claim. And you would have heard me mention about chief officers. Some of them, when they're traveling and on weekends and stuff like that, they ensure that time that they have spent, because it would normally be their weekend, that they get their extra days for it. Some people do that. Some people see it as a privilege and an honor to be serving their country. And, some people may say, well, this isn't true for all the civil service, but many civil servants are well compensated, for what they do. They're well compensated. As a matter of fact, I'm hearing a little rumbling now about chief officers getting bonuses, and I didn't know that was in place, but I'm hearing a little thing about that as well.
Mr. My colleague in the opposition, Chris Saunders, the representative for Bordentown West, tabled a motion in the LA, right? Because we are aware that there were certain people that were getting, right? And we have evidence of people getting substantial hardship allowances and all this kind of thing, right? So it's not all, but we're the EIU is working on it. But again, we have people in the civil service, and as far as I'm aware, the public service management law, the regulations, and the other terms of employment and whatever document they may be, require you to take your annual leave within the year. Otherwise, you lose the time. You don't get it back.
Or sometimes you may allowed to carry over
if there are particular reasons and extenuating circumstances.
Yes.
And you apply, you may be allowed to carry a portion of it forward, but it has to be the lesser part of it, not all of it.
Yes.
Right? And how that came about, remember now, was because way back when you had the people like Mr. Dennis Foster and Sir Vassal and them, because of their having not been able to take vacations for many, many years, they were rewarded, remember, for a 1 year salary, on 1 year vacation on pay at their retirement, because they hadn't, and we put the rule in that you couldn't carry it forward, right? So why is this man, right? Now the question we have to ask, right? And the question that is being asked, and the question is being investigated, are there any other people in the service who have quietly been paid for comp time? And that is going to be an interesting exercise, because we have some evidence that there may be. Right? And
rank and file or manager?
Top level.
Top level?
Top level. Or, top level. Right? Now, again, has there been a change, right, in the rules, right, that the rank and file don't know anything about? Because we have situations where we were told in Public Accounts Committee 2 weeks ago that officers in NAU, for instance, are working 5-6 hours a day overtime just to process people because they're short-staffed. And because we really haven't, although we make all these promises when they come down here, really haven't increased the staff or replaced staff in a timely fashion, right? But they don't get done. They can't claim nothing. They're simply doing their work, right? And my position is simple. If the rules change, it must apply for everybody.
Right.
And
those
kind of compensations should apply more to the rank and file than to the supervisors and the top chief officers.
Because they're lower compensated to begin with, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a chief officer in government now is well paid.
Okay. Let's take a break. When we return, I have some comments from someone in relation to the situation at the airport as well, and I will read those comments. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
It is amazing to see my daughter grow up and make a difference in the world, but it is also completely terrifying to worry about her when she goes out with her friends. It is my job as a father to make sure she makes smart decisions and is safe as a young woman. So, when my daughter needs quality care, I take her to CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go.
Puritan, now using the most popular and eco-friendly cleaning solvents. Take advantage of our ongoing discounts on all men and women's apparel. Ask about other discounts available in store. 3 convenient locations to serve you: Savannah Countryside, Elgin Avenue, Georgetown, Eastern Avenue, Georgetown. Drive-through, rain or shine. Free pickup and delivery available. Call Puritan Cleaners at 949-7104. You feel good when you look good.
CUC advises customers on Watercourse Road in West Bay that they will experience interruptions to their electrical service on Wednesday, February 6th between 9:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. Areas affected include all customers on Watercourse Road between the junction of Hell Road and the junction of Boatswain Bay Road, including Nettie Rivers Lane, Bowman Close, Hillendale Close, Cadbury Link, Windstart Drive, Bristol Close, Fruitland Way, Ruby Lane, Alexandra Close, and Knowles Close. Motorists are asked to drive with caution when utilizing Watercourse Road, as CUC will have a number of vehicles and personnel in the area and will be required to temporarily block one lane on several sections of Watercourse Road. CUC apologizes for this interruption, which is necessary to facilitate required overhead infrastructure upgrades to provide customers with safe, reliable, and efficient power. In summary, Watercourse Road and surrounding areas will experience interruptions to their electrical service on Wednesday, February 6th between 9:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. For more information on the outage and streets affected, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Hi, I'm Dawn McLean Brady, President of the Cayman Islands Small Business Association, better known as CISPA. Small businesses drive Cayman's economy. As small business owners, we depend on government to create an environment where we, as entrepreneurs, can do what we do best, and that's to provide products and services that are valuable to our customers and, in turn, employ others. The cruise piers and cargo ports provide these opportunities. Encourage our government to build a port and let the Caymanian entrepreneurial spirit shine. Support the port, support our tourism.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record, with your host, ORETT CONNOR.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning none other than the Honorable Diaz Miller, Leader of the Opposition. I want to remind you that For the Record now will run until 10 o'clock rather than ending at 9:30. We will go until 10 o'clock. So we start at 7:30. We end at 10 o'clock. One of our listeners has written in and said, speaking about the airport, I understand that the restaurant that is going in, there is no vent hole to the food to vent the scent of the food out. Please, the roof is leaking, and when they poured the sidewalk, there were no handicap parking spaces. So they had to go back, break up some spots to put handicap parking in. Also, down at departures, there's a handicap parking on the pedestrian crosswalk. It is a mess up. No bathroom. Again, we have to go to departures from the arrival area. Guys using the bush again because of the distance. I guess this is talking about those taxis and tour operators who are out there. So we park from Andy's car rental to start our parking. Police not doing their job. What a mess up there. Yeah. During the course of construction, it can really be messy, and that's the time when you need to have, additional directions, out there, and people directing traffic and everything else. But this individual obviously has issues with, some of the planning or lack thereof in terms of what is necessary.
I repeat what I said earlier. The whole problems of that project, right, is poor planning. Going in and making sure that all of these things were addressed were addressed in the planning stage. I mean, in some respects, it's a difficult project because the airport is operational, what's going on. Yep. Mm-hmm. But again, getting back to the pier, the same thing happened at the pier, Mm-hmm. Except there, it's going to be a 2 to 3 year exercise.
Yeah, and I believe what happens in the Cayman Islands as well is that many contractors are accustomed to building from scratch rather than renovate. That is why you'll hear many of them say it is cheaper to knock it down and rebuild it than it is because, for them, it is more of a headache. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Mr. For the Record.
Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning. And good morning to Mr. Ezra Miller, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine.
Mr. Miller.
Uh-huh.
I just would like to let you know, and this is not criticizing you, but the first fixed contract, government contract, was the glass house building.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Like I said, I couldn't recall, but you're right, yes.
And your dad can tell you. He remembers, but that was my demise from the government.
Yeah, now that you reminded me, I remember that, quite clearly.
You remember remember when I came home and I was researching that to see why it had gone $800,000 worth of fixed price contract?
Right.
And you remember all the subcontractors were escalating their price after they signed a contract with the main contractor, and then they were sending that on to the government, and the government was paying that money.
Right.
And I remember what they told me. I'm not going to say because it's going to be in my memoirs.
Good.
One of the top men in the government at that time called me in his office and he said, "Let me tell you something, Matthew. Up here, he said it's better to make friends than make enemies."
and unfortunately, that interpretation of enemy is trying to do the right thing for the right reason.
Exactly.
Which is my problem, is like yours,
yes,
in many respects.
We know that. And the problem is that when ORETT started this morning, ORETT was talking about the compass, but we have to lay the blame squarely on our shoulders.
Yep.
The blame belongs to us because you tell me I'm running a country. I am the elected leaders. I'm the elected members for the people who elected me to run their business. And you bring someone in, and he's on a contract, and the terms of the contract is that he has within so many months to start training someone to replace him, and he doesn't do it. He would be gone in a fortnight.
Yeah, and his contract and performance-wise, his payment will be held back too, not paid, not rewarded.
Exactly. he'll be gone. But that's what we do, because people like him and people like the Compass are the people who actually believe that they have the top privilege in the country and they can do anything they want and do something. And because and we have not freed ourselves yet from mental slavery from those people. The other thing is that one of the reasons why you don't have a modern airport today is the same thing. And it's the same thing. And Ms. Ezra, you know that when we were there on the airport board, we tried to I don't know if we did it, but we tried to tighten the contractual the issue of contracts.
Absolutely.
You remember the CEO can issue any contract under $100,000 and does not have to come to the board. And what happens in those instances? You give a contract $90,000. There's no fluctuation clause in it. There's no fixed clause in it, and there's no penalty. And then they go for the $90,000 and come back and say we need more money again.
Yeah.
And more money is advanced. But the Canadian people, when they came and they started negotiating with us about a contract, their price was $240 million to do a modern airport. And then where it got sticky with me, because I was in charge of the rebuilding of the airport, because one of the people who had applied for the contract was Ashton Gott, with the chairman's brother. So he stepped aside and he said, "You form a committee out of the board and you go on with it." And one of the first things the Canadian people told me, well, after we signed the contract, they were going to give us $10 million back. and I hit the ceiling. I hit the ceiling. Couldn't believe that. He told me that up front. Couldn't believe that. And I told him, I said, we're not on the bush. And we're not all country people, all professional people here.
Right.
And they went off and told some member of the government at the time that I was a fool, and that was the reason why they never got a good airport built. But the same thing happened with the NRA. The NRA were issuing contracts for less than $1,000, $100,000 by the management class, not coming to the board with it. And when I got there, I put 25% of the contract price as a penalty if you don't finish on time. If you don't finish on time. If the contract was $100,000, it's $25,000.
Right.
If you don't finish on time. I was not popular for that either. But it seems to me, Mr. Miller, that what has happened to us really as men in the country? What has happened to us? Because this could never happen in the old days. No.
Well, the latest complaint against me, sorry, is that I'm too honest for my own good. I don't know how it's possible to be too honest, but that's the problem, because they've gotten used to doing these little things, you see, and finding this trickery to milk the system. And we're sitting back.
Mr. Miller, what you have to start doing, you have to start. You have a nice place up there in Northside. You have a nice building there. You need to start to have correct classes, explaining to your people what public administration is and all that kind of stuff.
But you remember when, in order to be promoted to a principal secretary or permanent secretary, the original course, right?
Yeah.
You had to go and do some public administration.
That's right.
That's
right.
That was part of the requirement, but now we don't know what it. But I want to pick your brain for 2 minutes, Dr. McPhee, right? I know you're very much involved in the bail law.
Yeah.
I want to give you a hypothetical scenario, right?
Yeah.
A person gets arrested.
Yes.
And gets bail. I don't know, and right now we're not going to specify the conditions of bail, right? But he recommits an offense similar to what he was originally charged with that he was bailed for.
Yeah.
He gets bail again. The second time, the person commits a similar offense the third time and gets bail. Is that a normal interpretation of the bail law?
No, bail law, the bail principles of bail is that to be able to obtain bail is that you have to show that you will turn up for your trial, granted bail. Number two, you have to show that you're not going to interfere with prosecution witnesses if you're on bail.
Right.
Number three, you have to show that you will not commit further offenses if you're granted bail. Those are most of the principles.
Right.
If you commit further offenses while on bail, you may be granted a fresh bail if the offenses are not the same or similar to the offenses to which you've been granted bail.
Right.
But once you've been granted bail and you commit a similar offense, be sure you're not going to grant bail again until your trial.
The person is normally incarcerated until the case is heard.
Exactly.
That was what I thought it was too.
Exactly.
But thank you very much for that, sir, because I know you were very much involved in introduction to bail legislation and everything else in Cayman.
Yeah, Doc. Before you go, my question is, have we really progressed? We talk about the Cayman Islands, moving forward, but have we really progressed? Where in 2019. We still have to bring people from overseas for certain jobs in the Cayman Islands, in particular, and I'm speaking about the public service, that we have to continue to bring people in. When we do bring them, many times we bring them from the UK. They're not sent on secondment here to the Cayman Islands where the UK is paying their salary. But yet we have no financial obligation to the United Kingdom government to necessarily recruit from the UK. Now, looking at the case of the departing fire chief, yes, in certain instances we fall under the UK aviation regulations and everything, but I don't believe, and I think I'm certain about this, that the person has to necessarily come from the UK. But have we really reached any place in terms of our development as far as the civil service is concerned when we continue to have to bring these people from overseas to man these departments when we had Caymanians in there previously?
Not going backward. Remember now the civil servants who run this country in the older days. It's the same system of governance, but the only thing that they have to be responsible for more money, for more money. You think about Black Phillip. You know who Black Phillip was?
Yes.
Oh, boy. He was so correct, just like the Queen's husband. That's why we name him Black Phillip. Desmond Watland.
Yep.
Sir Wassel Johnson, Mr. Ernest Panton, and all of those people who ran this country in the old days and never depended on people from outside. And even with all the education that Caymanians have and went away and obtained and came back, we're still not confident that we can do the job ourselves. It is this colonial syndrome that we believe that someone from a larger country who from Europe especially, those places are better than we are, and that they can do things better than we are, even though when they come here. So we have to teach them what to do and teach them how it's done, and not what to do, but how it's done. And we still have this slave mentality that they are better off than we are, and that we have to depend on them because it doesn't look good if we do it, and people are going to criticize us if we do it. And they are sitting, when they finish their day and go to Sunset House or wherever they go, they laugh at us as old colonial slaves. And we still allow them to rough shut over us, and because we are not the modern warriors that our forefathers were, and they have taken advantage of us, and they see us as just a economic plum that they can pick any time they want and walk away with the $50,000 $1,000 or whatever they want, whenever they want to do, and be happy to give it to them and say thank you very much for beating us down and for dumbing us down, and we wipe their bottoms for them and stuff. And why is it? It's because what Marcus Garvey said. We have not emancipated ourselves from mental slavery from them. We still believe that they are superior and better to us, and we capitulate to them every time. And they notice, Mr. Ezra Miller, and some other people like myself and them have a hard time because they know when they come, the first thing they do is to isolate those people who they know, who knows them.
And they can't control us by inviting us to one little cocktail party and corn swabbling us with some fools.
Yeah. I'm not going to their places and drink from them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not doing that and eat from them. I made that quite clear. I'm not an establishment man.
Yep.
You see?
No. I told one permanent managing director of a law firm here when I got it, who didn't have the time of day for me until I got elected the Minister of Health, and all of a sudden he wanted to be my bosom friend. He's trying to say, but it doesn't seem like you want to go to lunch with me. I said, no, I go into lunch with the same people I went before I was made Minister of Health. You don't want to go to lunch with Ezra Miller. You want to go to lunch with the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Health is not available for you to go to lunch with.
Doc, we have to go to the commercial break. I want to thank you again for calling in, and remember now, we're going until 10 o'clock in the morning, so we'll be here until 10.
Thank you very much.
We have to meet to discuss what we
spoke about on the phone. Definitely, Doc.
Okay.
Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
It's 2019, and you know what they say, new year, new me?
Yeah, Bobo. For me, it's new year, new car.
For real? What you thinking of buying?
The new RAV4 from Vant Motors. It's one of the safest compact SUVs out there with enough room inside, which is good for my family and convincing my wife we need this. Plus, it's fuel efficient, fun to drive, and on top of that, it's on sale too.
Yeah, and I hear it's one of the best-selling SUVs on the market.
Cause you don't gotta spend more to do more. That's why I'm gonna get mine now, while they have a new stock to select from.
Do more in your RAV4. Save thousands on the all-new 2019 RAV4. Test drive yours today and see why the RAV4 is a best-selling SUV in Cayman. Available only at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
Water Authority Cayman is pleased to announce works will commence on February 5th, 2019 to replace the water main along Melmac Avenue. The first week of work will involve the installation of a temporary line which will provide continuation of service to customers while the replacement takes place. The whole project is expected to take 4 to 6 weeks, weather permitting. To facilitate these important works, it may be necessary for the road to be closed from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily, allowing local access only. During these times, the Water Authority will do its utmost to lessen the impact on local residences and the motoring public. Traffic signs will be posted in the general vicinity, and all motorists are asked to drive with caution to ensure their own safety as well as that of the Water Authority staff. The Water Authority appreciates the patience and understanding of its valuable customers as it upgrades its water infrastructure to better serve you and apologizes for any inconvenience this may cause. For more information on the Water Authority, please visit www.waterauthority.ky.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you.
Did you make resolutions for healthier eating? Then weigh portions on a kitchen scale for $5.99 and make noodles of your favorite vegetables with a tabletop spiralizer for $36.09. Or try an indoor electric low-fat grill from Gotham for $39.05. Eliminate clutter and maximize space with a cubicle storage organizer for $68.49. And save on a 5-gallon wet-dry vac for only $55.99.
Kirk's Home Center. Got a great deal in store for you.
Radio Cayman 11 a.m. News Headlines is brought to you by Savannah Pharmacy.
Savannah Pharmacy, just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Stay updated with the very latest news from Cayman, the region, and around the world. The 11 o'clock headlines, brought to you by
Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with ORETT Connor, continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Honorable Diaz Miller, Leader of the Opposition. The show goes on until 10 o'clock from here on. Starting today, we go on until 10 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Miller, I know that the whole issue of corruption, perceived or otherwise, is something that you certainly have a strong interest in and express your views on it. Transparency International in 2018, for 2018, produced an index which ranks the 180 countries and territories by their perceived levels of public sector corruption. I have searched in there to see if I can find the Cayman Islands, and I did it a few days ago. I did it recently, and I don't see the Cayman Islands there. I'll continue to do that.
Yeah, I don't think...
Are we listed there?
I don't think so. In fact, we're currently holding public hearings on the state of corruption and whether we have in place the relevant legislation.
Yes.
And quite frankly, it's not a bad report. We have many of the pieces of the puzzles
in place.
Mm-hmm. Certainly from the point of view of legislation, we have this unfortunate phenomena with the standards in public life law not being brought in because of, we are told consistently that it's members of the private sector who don't want it, but they're the same people that demanding that politicians and civil servants must declare everything they have, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a simple solution to that. You don't want to declare it, resign from the board and go home. So we have many of the things in place. What we don't have is what I would call, for want of a better word, a czar, anti-corruption czar, somebody who's responsible. Or a better solution would be to set up an integrity commission who would have an oversight of all of these various anti-corruption bodies, mm-hmm. and would also use the internationally accepted matrix from places like Transparency International, right, and the World Bank and other places, and apply those matrices to Cayman, so we would know where we are on the world stage, right? Mm-hmm. Because we should be fairly high up in having in place the relevant legislation. So it's one of the recommendations is likely to be that we take the next step of setting up an integrity commission to measure our success. And the other thing that is obvious is that while we have the agencies, they're not necessarily resourced to the level to get maximum efficiency and effectiveness, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things, again, we need to make sure that places like the Anti-Corruption Commission has the resources to deal with all the stuff that they get. And just to remind the listening public, the anti-corruption legislation has a clause in it that says if you are aware or you suspect corruption to be taking place and you do not report it to the Anti-Corruption Commission, you are guilty of an offense for not reporting it. Mm. So that's a good clause, but we need to publicize that more, and we need to also publicize the whistleblower legislation that offer people protection, but we believe that we've come a long way, right? The DG has put in place, based on evidence he gave us, some incentives to the civil service to complete the anti-fraud and detection training courses that they had written specifically for the civil service.
Okay.
So the majority of the civil servants have now been trained, etc. So all in all, the Auditor General's report on the state of corruption is not a bad thing, but we do need the standards in public life law to be brought in. It was disappointing to hear yesterday earlier evidence that the government is contemplating further amendments to that law in order to pacify these people in the private sector who are reluctant to file their registered interests. And I have some concerns about that because in this day and age, what Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify.
Yeah.
There's no way of verifying that people declare their conflict of interest, right? If you don't know what their interest is to start with, right? And so I am not going to support a private or some confidential register of interest by these people. If you don't want to register your interest, just refuse the appointment on the board.
Precisely.
But again, now, they want the prestige of being on this, because don't make no ghost fool you. When they're chairman of certain important boards in the country and all that kind of stuff, they use that commercially. They accuse us politicians and us civil servants of being corrupted, right? But make no mistake about it, they put that on their
and the resume, yeah.
And when they talking to people to generate business, they're quite willing to claim that they are on some of these,
without necessarily making any promises, but just the gesture to say, this is where I'm at.
There's nothing wrong with it, but don't make me believe that you're doing it entirely for altruistic purposes, and therefore you shouldn't have to declare nothing.
Yeah, okay. We have headline news at 9 o'clock, folks. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Radio K-Man. Radio K-Man's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
The second annual Youth Mental Health Symposium will take place on February 23rd at the Grand Cayman Marriott Beach Resort. The symposium, organized by the Alex Penton Foundation, will explore the current state of mental health in the Cayman Islands and provide recommendations on future improvements under the theme Addressing Our Past, Supporting Our Future. U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed the federal investigation into alleged Russian collusion in the 2016 election and talks about a proposed border wall. His lawyers have been reassured that he was not a target in special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, he said. Talks in Congress about wall funding, the issue behind the recent government shutdown, were, quote, a waste of time, according to Mr. Trump. And Australia recorded its hottest month ever in January, with average temperatures exceeding 86 degrees Fahrenheit for the first time. According to the Bureau of Meteorology, the extreme heat was, quote, unprecedented during the country's summer period. The extreme heat caused wildfire deaths, bushfires, and a rise in hospital admissions. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record. With ORETT Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, none other than the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable D. Ezard Miller. I want to remind our listening audience and viewing audience as well that we here on For the Record will be going until 10 o'clock. So the new hours for, the extended hours for the Record is from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So additional time for us to bring you quality programming as well as to hear your comments, listen to your concerns, or in many instances, listen to you present solutions to some of the issues and problems that we may have here in the Cayman Islands as well. Mr. Miller, I have a question on the Constitution, and I know the last time that you were here, you pointed out some of the areas that were open to discussion with the UK. And the one question that I had, well, actually there were two. One was concerning the fact that we do have councillors now, and there are questions as to whether or not, how constitutional the creation of councillors were. There was one administration, and they were able to satisfy themselves that councillors could be appointed. Other administrations came along, followed suit.
Doubled it.
I thought that going to the UK with non-controversial issues would have been an opportunity to settle that whole thing and appoint junior ministers instead, and put that in place. And that coupled with the fact that seeking to extend the cabinet to an additional ministry as well. If you're going to do that, why not just tidy up the whole thing one time and done and get your junior ministers in place? Was that brought forward?
That was one of the things that I advocated that should be included in our discussions, and it was, and it is part of what they've agreed to get us. But we're not calling them junior ministers. They're going to be called parliamentary secretaries.
Okay.
And
that's
we're going to have something very similar. The proposal that I believe we have agreed on is a proposal very similar to what's in the Montserrat Constitution.
Okay.
So they will have proper constitutional authority. Right? And because what we have now, is in my view, a misdefinition, right? A misinterpretation of that little clause that says you can appoint councillors, a committee. Right.
So you have a committee of one, really?
No. But again, it was entitled for the minister to be able to get advice from a group of people on particular projects and subjects, It was never intended to be used as a way of keeping people in line in the party by giving them a position. And what has grown out of that is usually now the councillor who is attached to that ministry that acts in the absence of the ministry, Because you will recall that at the Heroes' Day, Mr. David White was the acting Minister of Tourism, because I think he's the council attached to the
yes.
And I support the idea of parliamentary secretaries, or my choice of word would have been junior ministers, but I know the nomenclature is irrelevant once we have it constitutionally authorized and defined. Their conditions and how they're appointed, and et cetera, all in that thing.
What was the rationale for choosing parliamentary secretaries as opposed to junior ministers? Was it because in line with the UK
and some of the other territories already had it in their constitution? So we could find what we tried to do. We could find a territory that had already achieved and agreed with the FCO. We figured that the negotiation would be more in our favour if we use something that they're already granted, and opposed to asking them to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So.
And I'm searching through the Montserrat Constitution, and I'll find that specific section, and we will share that with our listening audience as well, as we go along. So I'm going to throw the mic to you in the meantime, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, but in the meantime, what I'd like to do is, I talked about repeatedly, I saw some emails flying around by some lawyer this morning trying to question the authority to have meetings and who was having a meeting and he wasn't legally notified and all this kind of stuff. But I had a meeting last night. We have a problem with, and you're very familiar with it, Waterkey Road is in a deplorable state. Yes, it is unsafe. You go down the road in your bicycle, you're risking your life. On Sunday, I almost got in a very serious accident with a boat on my little truck because there's one homeowner who has palm trees growing about 6 foot over the road.
Right, hangover. Sometimes we have to dodge them on our bicycles.
And I had to stop quickly, but suddenly behind those, because the oncoming traffic and people walking to the side of the road. There's nobody walking onto the side of the road. You kind of ease over in the other lane, and there's still room for oncoming traffic. Right? So, at the advice of the NRA, and I have been refusing for some time now to do any repair work on that road, because until we deal with the encroachments, because there are many encroachments into the road. And the NRA last year got the Lands and Survey to re-establish the road, right? The road was originally gazetted in 1986, right? Quite a while ago.
Okay.
Right? I had there last night the boundary plan for all the roads, right? The only little piece that wasn't done in 1986 was from the junction where we go to what are called Camp Road, where we go to the public Kaibo campsite, down to Starfish Point.
Okay.
That wasn't done until 2004.
Okay.
But all of it is we got lots of it. And then what we did was we got Lands and Survey to do a new map, actually locate the road according to the original boundary plan, right? So nobody can claim that we're moving a road, we're not establishing a new road, but the encroachments had to be moved. So the purpose of the meeting last night was to inform the landowners in the Cayman area what we plan to do, the rationale behind it, right? To disperse some of the rumors that were being spreading around that I was doing it, that I was building a new road and I was interfering with people's property, and they hadn't, they had a right because they had been, et cetera, et cetera. But I have to report that it turned out to be a very pleasant meeting. I was expecting a war, so I went fully armed with all the necessary legislation and statutes and everything else, and had to refer to it once in a while because some people were thinking that they could, because they put their stuff in the road now and had it there for a couple of years, they know, But so we had some 60 plus landowners turn out to the meeting. Yeah. Anytime you're dealing with land, people
oh, yes, they will respond then.
But in the end, there was a unanimous vote. Every single person there voted for what we were trying to do. Mm-hmm. And the NRA is going to follow the statute. Now, each individual landowner will be notified what his encroachments are with a map and given a time frame to get it out of the way. Otherwise, the roads law gives the NRA full authority to come in and just move it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I had to point out to one or two last night that, they not only can they move it, right, they can charge you for the cost of moving it, right, and they can ask the DPP to prosecute you for encroaching on the road. Okay. So our recommendation is that most of you just agree voluntarily to move it yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So we think that that's the way it's going. So it's, certainly by the end of the year, we will hope that road will be repaired to the point where it's safe to drive on. And I think the plan for the NRA, I don't have the detailed planning of the actual road design, but what we envisage is the standard procedure on a 30-foot road. They will pave with hot mix 2 12-foot lanes, which will give a 24-foot width hot mix. And then there will be 3 feet of shoulder on either side, If we can get that shoulder brought up to some kind of surface, I'd like to see us put in a bike lane, but it might not be possible.
Yeah.
But certainly people will have space to walk, and you will have, if you on a bike, you can pull off onto that surface and protect yourself.
Yeah. I was going to say,
you can't ride into a wall now.
Yeah, a number of people use that road to walk in the mornings, whether or not they're residents there. There are people who may be, renting just for the weekend tourists or whatever. And you would expect that you're going to have an increase in traffic when that public beach there, is
but the public beach is used so much now that I don't know that the bathrooms, that was one of the reasons that they were trying to object to the bathrooms. And again, they're accusing us now that if we build a good road, people can drive faster and get more traffic. But the whole complexity of Cayman-Kai has changed. When the Dices built Cayman-Kai, the lots are 100 foot wide by 120, depending on deep. So they were always envisaged for single occupied homes, right? What we're getting now is everybody's building these 2-story, 3-story houses, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms, huge houses, for rental purposes, because they get some of them get a couple $1,000s a night, right? Okay. But they're the ones that are bringing all these extra people into the area, right? And so we have to. I told them, I said, listen, I have a moral, legal, and ethical responsibility as a representative to do what is right according to the law.
Okay, we have one caller. I think we can take that caller before we go to our break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. And yourself?
I am well, Mr. Ezra. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you? I'm glad to hear that you're good, too.
Yes, it's a Friday.
Uh-huh.
Alrighty,
I hate Fridays because I run into honey-do lists for Saturday and Sunday.
Well, I don't work Saturday and Sunday, so you know.
No, but I don't normally work either, but because I'm home, I run into that the wife's honey-do this, honey-do this.
Oh, makes sense, makes sense. Just a quick question, though.
Yes.
As we're on the topic of housing, it's just an incident that happened with me and my husband this week.
Uh-huh.
So I just want some clarity and some, just some insight on your input and what you have to say as a member of Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
So an incident happened this month, way up in the month, between my husband and the MLA.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know the incident to what transpired because, like I said, it's my husband and not me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a young Caymanan and I have my home. I just had a baby. As we were talking about homes, I just got one. It's so hard to get one. My God.
Mm-hmm.
But finally
not
got
like it
one.
Used to be. Planning,
telling you.
You can't do it in stages anymore like we used to build our houses.
I'm telling you. But I had to buy because the building.
Yeah.
So, I just got that, so thank God for that. So I don't know what incident transpired between him and whoever in the parliament, but he is out of a job now because of what happened. Because it's a member of parliament, he's out of a job, right? Wow. No mortgage. I mean, I can't pay my mortgage on my own because I'm working, but it was me and him putting things together. So it's just me alone with a young baby and a 4-year-old. I don't know what am I to do. You understand? What happened was it was with a transport board. So they just revoked his ID without warning, nothing at all. They just said a written letter came in, and that was it. And he's done.
Tell him to come and see me. Let me see what the letter wrote, and because there's a system there where he should
must have some legal redress,
right, and they should have gotten some warnings, because I can tell you, I have reported some of these bus drivers and my constituents are going through a school zone at 65 miles an hour.
Yes,
and
sense.
I have given the evidence and everything else, and it doesn't appear as anything has happened. So tell your husband to give me a call, 327-5757. And bring the correspondence that he's gotten from the transport board, and let me look at it and see if I can give him any advice, because he might need to go get a lawyer and get it reinstated.
Yes, sir. All right.
Okay, but I'll do whatever I can to assist him and etc.
Yes,
okay?
sir. Because he's a Caymanian.
Oh, no, and we got to look at, listen, if we don't look after our own, nobody can look at, we got enough people that trample on us now.
This is why I call you, because I know you are a man for your people.
No, I try. Okay. My only problem is I can't do as much as I'd like to do. But maybe the next election we'll do something about that.
Oh, yeah.
Put me in charge, and I guarantee many things going to change around here.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Have a good day.
We have one more caller. Should we take the break first, Paul, or take the caller? Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC, and good morning and Happy New Year to my friend Ezard.
Good morning.
And same to you, my dear.
Okay.
Good to hear from you.
Thank you very much. And OC, you are a man of your word, too, because we've been talking about a little later. Your talk show is very informative and stuff like that, and then we like talking to you anyway.
Thanks. Yeah, I was a little bit slower. I was a little bit slower in getting it done than the politicians. Politicians usually get things done a little faster.
As a pretty West Bay girl, you can't be offering him kind of kudos to OC in my presence, my dear.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry.
I'm on North Side, and I'll be jealous.
Oh, yes, that's true, too. That's true. But
a little bit of humor. Good.
I was shocked. See in the paper, Mr. Leggy being handed a what? They should have been handing him a ticket off of this island for what he has done to this island. Remember, when he got to New York or wherever he went, remember now, he reported that he had to run because he was afraid.
For his safety.
Yep. So why are they... What? I can't believe what has happened to the guts of these people. Did they spit them out when they were eating the better meal or what? I don't understand that. It's annoying. It's really annoying. And that poor lady that I just heard, I feel sorry for her, but it's only Caymanians. It seems like these things are happening to, and people that are educated still can't get jobs. And talking to ministers from the various departments and stuff like that, still can't get jobs. We'll see what we can do. Now that is recorded on their tongue. So it's.
But anytime we tell you that, they know they're not going to do nothing, because they're going to tell you, it wouldn't be telling you, see what we can do. You heard what I just told the lady? Tell her husband, bring the letter to me. Let me call the transport board and see if I can help him.
Yeah, but you not the labor for the labor minister or anyone else or representatives down here that does nothing. And you should see some of our roads down here and some of the garbage that is on some of the roads and in the roads, even where the mattresses. Lord have mercy, Ezard. Lord have mercy on us, because it seems like we're getting more and more gutless. That's why these people are coming in and thinking that we're idiots.
Yep.
We're total idiots. Anyway, I wanted to say more, but you're going on till 10, so I'll leave it for another day. Both of you have a good weekend. Thank you, O.C.
Same to you, my dear.
Thank you very much, Stu. Thanks for being such a loyal listener and a loyal contributor to For the Record as well. We're going to take a commercial.
That's as Cayman as they come.
Yes. We're going to take a commercial break now. For the Record, we'll return shortly.
It's 2019, and you know what they say, new year, new me.
Yeah, Bobo. For me, it's new year, new car.
For real? What you thinking of buying?
The new RAV4 from Avant Motors. It's one of the safest compact SUVs out there with enough room inside, which is good for my family and convincing my wife we need this. Plus, it's fuel efficient, fun to drive, and on top of that, it's on sale too.
Yeah, and I hear it's one of the best-selling SUVs on the market.
Cause you don't gotta spend more to do more. That's why I'm gonna get mine now, while they have a new stock to select from.
Do more in your RAV4. Save thousands on the all-new 2019 RAV4. Test drive yours today and see why the RAV4 is a best-selling SUV in Cayman. Available only at Vamped Motors, Walkers Road.
My dad is the best. He was always there to protect me and guide me to be a better person. He helped shape me into the woman that I am today. But I was never prepared for the day that I had to protect and take care of him. It was terrifying and a total role reversal. But I will always be there for him like he was for me. When it comes to his medical care, I go where he always did, West Bay Pharmacy.
We know the difficulty of caring for elder family members. At West Bay Pharmacy, we can help assist you with caring for your loved ones by providing quality medicine and some of the most efficient home healthcare items possible. We provide precise calculations with your prescriptions to ensure your medical safety. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the Record with ORETT Connor continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Honorable Diaz Miller, Leader of the Opposition, and as a result of the hard work of the Managing Director of Radio Cayman and her staff, For the Record now goes on until 10 o'clock, and we will be bringing you additional information about the sponsor for that additional half hour as well. That information will be coming to you shortly. Also, you heard Mr. Miller talk about the amendments to the Constitution, our Constitution, and one particular amendment in relation to seeking clarifying the position of councillors in the government, within the government administration, within the government executive. And those councillors currently can be appointed to act as ministers as well. Of course, any member of the Legislative Assembly can be appointed to act as a minister as well. And Mr. Miller referred to the fact that one of the proposals that was accepted was that we would have amendments to our Constitution that would make provisions for parliamentary secretaries, sometimes called in other jurisdictions junior ministers. And he referred to the fact that rather than reinventing the wheel, they wanted to follow the Constitution of some of our overseas territories that would have had provisions in place for parliamentary secretaries. So I will read to you Section 44 of the Montserrat Constitution Order 2010, and it reads, "The Governor, acting in accordance with the advice of the Premier, may appoint by instrument under the public seal up to 2 parliamentary secretaries from amongst the elected members of the Legislative Assembly to provide assistance to ministers. And then it goes on to talk about how they should vacate their offices and things of that nature.
I don't think we carried forward the limitation of 2.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you that, whether or not we had a specific number in our proposed amendment.
Can appoint.
So it makes it flexible.
Yes. Can appoint. It doesn't limit.
And that is needed too, because you will have some instances when a government is taking over the full reins of administration, and you have a lot of egos to a certain extent that you have to fill people with expectations of being part of the administration. So if you limit the number that you can use as junior ministers, that ties your hand. But at the same time, you have to ensure also that doesn't upset the ratio in any way in terms of the number of members of the Legislative Assembly, like you have the ratio for the number of ministers and the number, of members of the Legislative Assembly. It doesn't affect that because they're not
full ministers. They're normally they're obviously going to be backbench members of the ruling government.
Yes,
rather than as one group or what we have now, a coalition of 2-3 groups. Right?
Okay.
But the addition of a second minister. Mm-hmm. That ratio had to be adjusted.
Okay.
Again, and this is, I'm not telling the tales of the schools, because we had this discussion before we went. I favored and still favor changing that formula from 2/3 or not. I think it's based on 2/5 or something like that right now. Is the current definition, right? To remove a government to a simple majority. The feeling, which I eventually acquiesced to, is that could lead to fickle changes if you just needed a simple majority, which could be destabilizing in the long run. And when we're looking at making amendments to our Constitution, the Constitution should not be amended to benefit particular people or to punish particular people. It should be done in what's in the best interest of the country. And my approach to this was all of the things that we have asked for improves the ability of Caymanians to govern Cayman for Caymanians, right? That's my overarching goal, right?
Okay, we have one caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning, Isaac. Good morning, OT.
Hey, good morning, Doc. How are you doing? Happy New Year to you. I don't think I've spoken to you since the New Year.
No, man, I don't get no turtle meat at all.
Soon get some.
You mean you're not getting invited to them things down that are just north of Mary Street without having to identify the area, them cookouts and things?
No, well, that's my fault, really.
Yeah, because I'm sure they had one last weekend for her birthday.
That's my fault.
Okay.
I kind of like a little tied up in trying to finish this book, but at the same time, I can't. I've been writing on it for so long, and I can't get where I really want with it because it's not easy when you're trying to conceptualize something that is problematic.
Right. Yeah.
So, but one of the reasons why I'm calling is that I think that we're getting to a point in our society where we have sufficient people with intellect and experiences to be able to sharpen the political discourse. I like Jose's show because he pays attention to details, and even if he's not saying it just outwardly, he's at least implying that those details are related to a structure.
Mm-hmm.
When he spoke about the compass this morning, I could sort of what resonated with me really was the whole idea of the press and of this giant of a man who comes to this inferior territory and assumes this superior value posture where he becomes the judge, he becomes the jury and the executioner for everything. It is his decision as the Lord of this country that we should all follow, because what he says is morally correct according to him.
Oh, okay.
So we are corrupt, but he could never be corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
We are subjective, but he's always objective.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder whether or not he has the authority because of a history where we have assumed that certain people are always right and certain people are always wrong. And I would be as bold to say that because he sees himself as white, he sees himself also as superior in the light, and that we who are in the dark, because we're dark, we're in the dark. These colonial paradigms, whether or not they are perpetrated by the Americans, the Canadians, the New Zealanders, or the Australians, are always the same, because what they're doing is that they're trying to maintain power relationships that are based upon the wrong criteria. And so I can't at my age anymore hear people crying about their powerlessness. In all instances of our society, the young lady has called about property. Well, property represents power. Mm-hmm. And they don't want any of us to have power or to have as little power as possible, because they see society as being ultimately a paradigm or an example of how superiority is determined. And this is unfortunate, because we think sometimes that our world is not directed by our subjective thoughts and dreams. But it is. He comes here with a subjective understanding that he's superior, and he objectifies that by the power which he exerts over our minds by having a paper, the power that he uses to influence politicians by saying to them, if you don't do what I say or say what I do, that I'm going to call you out. And if I call you out because I am head of this hierarchy, that people are going, this value hierarchy, that people are going to believe that I am truthful and that you are not truthful. Mm-hmm. And how some of us with intellect can be put to the bottom of the hierarchy simply because we do not speak in a way to uphold racial discrimination and colonialism in our society. That is where we need to be going. And most of us are just playing with the issue. And so, Ezra, if you are intending to form a political party, I would say that what you need to do is some of us need to come out. We need to out ourselves, just like the homosexuals out themselves and say, this is what we believe. Some of us have to have the confidence to say that we understand the kinds of power relationships that have been constructed in the Cayman Islands ever since we started to develop economically in the 70s and the 80s, that what we have done is that we have stratified our society around race lines or along color lines in this society, and that was not what we were all about, and that they have significantly changed our focus of what has value, and that we need our politicians to come together to be able to recast the dice so that we will be given an opportunity to value those things that were sacred to us, which means that we negotiated, although we have had differences, that we negotiated on individual levels to determine what the outcomes would be, and not that we had groups of people who came in or who were organized in groups secretly to be able to determine a situation that was based upon this belief that some people are superior to the others. And we are in a world today where people are believing it's no longer significant color. And we see what's happening in America, and we see what's happening in Europe. We see these things coming back to haunt us again. And when we are supporting billionaires that have surveillance systems that are definitely taking up all the property, and that our property means power. Nothing else is powerful besides ownership. And those of us who own very little or no much at all will lose it if we speak out. Well, I'm at the age now where I will speak out about these things, and I would encourage people that when Roy calls and he says that the first political party, registered political party, was by persons that I recognize as being black people or colored people or whatever they want to call them people in this society, it was not successful because it threatened the status quo. And we have to understand in this particular country that unless we make a decision to associate with each other based upon some criterion, that there will not be any association that will be strong enough to confront those institutions in this society that is based around money and power. And at the end of the day, the Caymanian people will be powerless. So let's see if we can get those brilliant minds, especially OC's brilliant minds, to zoom in a little bit more and call it out. He follows the Caribbean news. He knows what's happening in Bermuda, what's happening in other places. It's happening here, or it has already happened here, where we can see it's them and us, them meaning those with power, and us meaning those without power. And we need to use the government, because the government institution is where we come to agree that we will have a neutral body that will make sure that one group of people or one particular section of the society will not totally dominate and take advantage of the other sector of the society. Government is there to maintain harmony, balance, and our society has lost that balance. The reason why we have so many people suffering from different types of mental disorders, because of the social disruptions, because of the powerlessness, because of the hopelessness that is developing in the society. Government needs to use stronger arms, not just to placate the people and make the people think that we're all on that same level where we can talk with the same accent, pretend that we don't have power, and pretend that there's no discrimination and no distinctions between us. But at the end of the day, it's real. The power in this society is real, and we charge our government with the responsibility to make sure that the powerful does no longer take advantage of the powerless. That would be a good position to start a political party. Understanding. Thank you.
Doc, thank you very much for that as well. We have to go to a commercial break. When we return, I believe we have a voice note that we're going to play as well, so please stay tuned. The conversation with the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable D. Ezard Miller, will continue after this short commercial break.
Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m., Radio Cayman's Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio, featuring Will Sinatra.
Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop, reggae, dancehall, Latin, soca, urban gospel, old school.
The Super Jam Show is fueled by the proud sponsorship of insurance agent Michael Webster from Cayman Insurance Center.
Don't take chances with your family's future.
Did you know that recycling collection containers are located island-wide in Grand Cayman? The Department of Environmental Health's program is an integral part of DEH's waste management responsibility in the Cayman Islands. Start your recycling program at home today. Put your tin and aluminum cans in appropriate DEH recycling containers at all Foster supermarkets, Kirk Market, or Hurley's Grand Harbor. Help keep the Cayman Islands clean. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more information about recycling, go to www.deh.gov.ky.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with ORETT Connor, continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, the Honourable D. Ezard Miller, Leader of the Opposition. We have a voice note. Let's play that voice note.
Good morning to you, Mr. O.C. Good morning to you also, Mr. Ezard. God's blessings upon you all and to the entire Cayman Islands. Just a quick question. If you purchased a piece of land and you got it surveyed and they put down the boundary marks, you applied, submitted your plan and applied for permission to be able to build. The former head of the Lands and Survey Department comes and he says to you, Miss and Sir, your boundary marks are actually in the wrong place. Your land is short 6 feet on one side and short 13 feet on the other side. This has been from 11 years ago. We're still waiting for Lands and Survey, or whoever it is that is responsible, I guess I should say, to come and get this straightened up. Now we have the piece of land which is next door to us has been purchased by somebody else. So of course they're going to want to put down their boundary marks after they've gotten it surveyed. What can we do about that? We've been told the Lands and Survey Department numerous times. So please, sir, no disrespect, don't tell me to go back to the Lands and Survey Department, because that's not helping. What can we do? What can be done about that? Is there any way, Mr. Ezra, that you can assist us with that by looking it over, and seeing what can be done, sir? We would really appreciate your help. As a matter of fact, we reside in your district in Northside. God's blessings, again, I say, upon you all and to everyone in the Cayman Islands. Blessed weekend, safety as well.
I want to thank that caller.
Yeah, I need to go and look at her survey maps. But if it's on the road frontage, right, that is wrong. The only reason I would think that Lands and Survey would want to adjust them, because if her original survey is a precise survey and registered with map, nobody can, and accepted by plan, nobody can touch it.
Yes,
that's guaranteed, right? If it's just what we call a boundary plan and it's taken off of a subdivision measurements and maps, right, then it can be some variances when it comes to a precise survey, right? Particularly in many years of Northside, but this general boundary surveys are a little bit off. The unfortunate thing is, you will recall, OC, when Lands and Survey used to have a little unit in it that would go out and help people like her find their boundaries and establish them for them, etc. At minimum cost, or not, I guess largely because of lobbies from the licensed private survey companies.
You have to go out now and find a commercial.
Yeah, the Lands and Survey no longer does that. Yeah. So probably the only solution for this lady is to go and get a surveyor, a licensed surveyor, to come in and do what's called a precise survey of her property. And then when that is registered, then that's the boundary position. So I'll get in touch with you.
Okay, we have one caller on hold. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Ezra.
Good morning.
I was listening to Dr. Frank just now, and what he says makes sense, because if there's no common goal for people to work together for, that's where you don't get the cohesiveness, And the part of that you can see in basic things like sports, and then people attend a football match, and you look at Caymanians who attend to support Caymanian football, and you look at other nationalities, or you go to the children's football games and you look at the parental support, and it's the same basis. But you see, it comes back to what we do as a culture, what we do as a nation, what the motives are that we drive through to our children, and what messages we send, part of their social studies and so forth. And I really hope some of that can change, because if we're going to build a nation, the nation has to know where it's going. It has to know who else makes up my nation and how we are one. And there are lots of other nations that we can look at around the Caribbean that identify their people as one. You look at our closest neighbor, Jamaica. Let a Jamaica match come here. Let a football match. Let an artist, and you watch the support. But then you look at the support this weekend, for example, for the Mosaic Festival. I went to it on the Saturday evening when they had the free musical set for young people and youth talent. If there were 30 of us there, that was plenty. What does that say about us as a nation and about our children and what we see together as being important? So it has to be that persons like you, Mr. Ezra, continue to drive a we need cohesiveness in this country, or fruits of our labor are not going to continue, and they're not going to develop and flourish in this country, and we are going to suffer.
Oh yeah, and I am of one of the view that Caymanians have to become more assertive, and if we don't take this thing back for our children, then we have nothing to leave them.
Yes, sir. Anyway,
thank you very much, caller. You have a great day and an enjoyable weekend as well. One more caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Fine, thanks.
This is Edison Tibbetts, as you probably know.
Yes, sir. And let me personally and publicly express our condolences to you on your loss as well, sir.
Thank you. you very much. I wasn't going to call in, but I was driving and I heard the previous minister. I won't bother to call any names, but anyway, while I agree, and my cousin just kind of agreed with him that they called before me, but I would like to remind that previous minister, past minister, I should say, when he was a part of the system that he's talking about, he did the same thing. So I would humbly suggest that he either speak straight and not out of both sides of his mouth. Because while I agreed with a lot of things that he said, when he was the minister with the government, he did the complete opposite. So that is my view on his take.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he might be a learned person, but I consider myself a learned person too. We just have different fields. And I do believe either that he's changed his mind or he's just talking that way to get sympathy or something. Anyway, that's my view. You guys, thank you so much for your condolences, and you have a fantastic weekend and a good February.
Thank you, sir, and the same to you as well. Commercial break, Paul? We're going to take a commercial break now. I believe we have one caller on hold. Paul, caller, just hang in there. Quick commercial break. When we return, we will take your call.
Go Cocoa Nuts with Cocoa Fest at Pedro Castle. On February 9th from 12 to 6 p.m., indulge in all kind of coconut ting. There's coconut-inspired cooked food, treats, fresh coconut water, crafts, games, music, and watch our coconut plant demonstrations. Admission is only $5 and free for kids under 12. Proceeds from each entry fee benefit Meals on Wheels Cayman. So if you like coconut, come to Cocoa Fest. Pedro Castle, February 9th. For event details, check us out on Facebook. This event is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. We're good for you.
Hello, I'm Joseph Woods, the Acting Port Director. Our port facility is the hub of the Cayman Islands commerce and economic activity, handling $658 million in imported goods annually. From groceries to construction materials, all sectors of our economy depend on the port. But it is now 40 years old. Its infrastructure is degrading, and we feel the strain from insufficient space for both cargo and cruise operations. The time is now. A new expanded port facility is needed to allow both cargo and cruise to operate efficiently and to support our island's continued growth and development. Support the port, support our tourism, support Cayman's continued growth and development.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record, with your host, ORETT CONNOR.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, none other than the Honorable D.S. Miller, Leader of the Opposition. We have one caller on hold. We're going to take that caller, and I hope that I get an opportunity to read you Section 54, subsection 6 of the Cayman Islands Constitution Order 2009 in relation to that section that we use now to justify the appointment of councillors, and take that and compare that with the Montserrat Constitutional Order, Section 44 of that makes provisions for parliamentary secretaries. And the reason that I want to do this is because I know some of you out there may be a little bit skeptical and believe that, this is another power grab by the government to ensure that positions are created or whatever. We need to look at the intention of Section 54, subsection 6 of our Constitution that allows, some responsibility to be given to a committee or a board. But let's take the caller first. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Ossie and Mr. Miller.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Happy New Year too, man.
Yeah, all the best to you too, Mr. Miller. I hope you live as long as I can give you breath.
Yeah, but as long as you can keep me company.
Gentlemen, since your topic this morning of lands and survey, I don't really know what their job is, right? I have an idea, but, I've been let down and fooled so many times. And, the problem with these departments, if something had dragged along for 3 years, you would think that they would have the animosity, the decency, or the humane within them to call you and say, look, Mr. Thompson, here is the position. Then I would know. But see, if you recall, it's over a year. It's over a year now that I brought this matter up to that I was having problems, and I would have never dreamed in this lifetime that these things could turn so violent, right? That stuff that you dream about, would only be a dream. But this stuff is actually could come to reality. And had I known then what I know now, I would have made all of the necessary adjustments, and I would have do what I had to do with my property, and I wouldn't be going through what I'm going through today, because it's a total disgrace as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I have a problem with my property on Walker's Road, and I'm trying to get that resolved. And Mr. Miller, I heard you spoke to the lady earlier, telling her that there is a procedure that she should take, and what the way to go about it. Well, I've done it all. I've had proper licensed surveyors came in, put down the mark, and all I'm waiting for now for the last 2 years is one little okay from Lands and Survey. When I call, I can't even get an answer. I can't get nobody with any sense that I can speak to that can give me a little bit of peace to the day. Just today. No about tomorrow, just today. Because I want a little peace for it. And I can't get a big result. But you know what I can do then? I go in and put down my mark, my fence, and that's going to fix my problem, because I am sick and tired of what they are doing and what they're not doing. Sorry, I got to rephrase that. What they're not doing, because it's nowhere on the face of the earth that a little something like this should take that long.
The only thing that could get complicated, what I would think, is if the adjoining properties are objecting to it or something. But what are they telling you? I mean, if your surveyor surveyed it and said this is the mark, and he applied for them for registration, and that shouldn't take very long. And once it's registered, that's it.
Mr. Miller, I went to every politician, every one in my neighborhood, every one that I could think about, to try to help me get this thing resolved. No disrespect to them in any way, because I know personally that they have had contact with Lands and Survey. But even those are elected officials, they totally ignored. And I can't even, I don't even have a document to go to them anymore to say, look, can you look into this again? Because they did what they could do, right? It's just a total disrespect and connection that this particular department has the people in this country. They don't care whether you could end up killing somebody or you could end up getting killed. That's how serious a piece of little land can cause in your dealing with, right? So, I'm going to leave it there, gentlemen. Okay. Just to get a little bit of my frustrations out this morning.
Thank you. And keep pushing away. And like you say, at the end of the day, do what you have to do, and then someone will react to it. As long as it's not something too way, out in left field. We have one caller. This is going to be the last caller for the morning. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Miller.
Morning, sir.
Just a comment first, Mr. Miller. You must play a lot of sports, right?
That's usually that's about the only two things I watch on TV: sports and news.
You got the balls.
But I'm so confused. I'm so confused over Brexit now. I think I can stop watching that.
Yeah, just one question about the seamen. I understand from somebody the other day that the young lady was married to seaman for many years. That she's not from here, but she has to wait until she's 60 or 65 before she can get a pension that he was receiving.
Yeah, 60. She got to be 60 to be entitled to the pension.
60.
Yes.
Because a lot of people they spent 30 years and that was part of their income, and I was wondering whether they should have.
No, she's not entitled. Yeah. She's not entitled to the pension until she becomes 60. That's the rule.
What about the elderly ladies here that were married to seamen, but they died at some years ago?
They should be able to produce the necessary affidavits and stuff to establish and get the widow's pension.
Yeah, because my 10, 15 years, I got lost at sea. That was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But they should still be getting it, right?
Yeah, I mean, provided they haven't remarried and they're getting benefits from other places, you know.
Okay, thank you. By the way, hello?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Congratulations on your re-election the next time. I think you and Kenneth Bryan are pretty sure it'll be good.
Okay. Thank you, caller. Thank you. Okay, I promised, and I'm going to try to do this very quickly. Just paraphrasing Section 44 of the Montserrat Constitution, it says that parliamentary secretaries may be appointed, 2 parliamentary secretaries to assist ministers. Or the section that we relied on here in the Cayman Islands for the appointment of councillors is Section come on. Section 54, subsection 6.
Yeah.
And it reads, a minister charged under subsection 1 with responsibility for the conduct of any business of the government may be assisted in the discharge of that responsibility by a board, committee, or other similar body consisting wholly or partly of persons who are not public officers and established by a law made under the Constitution or by directives in writing given by the minister concerned, and any such body, and I will place the emphasis on body, right, shall
not
have
intended
such
to be one individual.
advisory, right,
Yeah.
consultative and administrative functions as may be conferred on it by such a law or directions. But in exercising any such functions, the body, again I emphasize, the body shall be subject to the directions of the minister concerned. So we use that. And I would say that's stretching the imagination of the framers of this particular section. In other words,
the elasticity that stretched so far that the elasticity is about to part.
Yes,
and not return.
Yes. So in essence, in all truthfulness, that needed to be sorted out, needed to be cleared up, and it has been done now. Final words, Mr. Miller.
Yeah. Well, just 2 things. We're having our regular senior citizen thing next Tuesday, so I want to make sure all the senior citizens come out, and then we're planning our first quarter senior citizen, young people, students interactive dinner on the 23rd of February, following up from the one we had in December. Everybody enjoyed it so much that we're going to try and do one a quarter, and I need to publicly lay a complete at the hands of the sports minister. I'll follow it up in writing that we were supposed to have some rules posted on the Ronald Forbes playing field. I'm not sure who has given permission for some football group to do it, but that field is supposed to be lights out and closed at 9:30. 10 o'clock last night, they were still there, and they were making so much noise, I could hear them sitting on my patio, which is some distance away. We really need to get the rules posted, and I would encourage, and I'll follow up in writing, but just so the community know that I am not happy with what's going on, because it is very disruptive to the students who are trying to go sleep and everything else, and we have some very senior citizens there who are not well, and I have tried to speak to them. Last time I went to speak to them, I almost got in a fight with them, so I decided not to intervene last night. But we need to get that place closed down at 9:30.
Okay.
And I'm also publicly stating that I really don't wish to see that group of people using the field anymore.
Okay. I also want to remind persons that tomorrow, starting at 6:30 in the Scranton area, the Scranton Committee, along with MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan, they will having a cleanup and beautification project of their part. That will include the additional land that government has acquired for that area as well. And you heard Mr. Bryan on Wednesday urging people to come out and assist. And I believe from the feedback that I'm hearing, people are going to be there. I saw a very prominent former permanent secretary at the hospital yesterday, And she said to me, are you coming on Saturday? And I said, yes. And sounds like she's going to be there as well. I won't call names, but she knows who she is. And so we urge you to go out there, help the Scranton community, the committee there, with their cleanup and beautification project. For those of you who are having birthdays on the weekend, I want to say to you, happy birthday to you as well. And I'm going to take the liberty here to wish my sister Anna Smith happy birthday tomorrow, 2nd of February. Also, my good friend, former colleague at the Immigration Department, Mr. Gary Wong, happy birthday as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Ebanks at 12:15 for Talk Today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. And Cayman Pharmacy Group, with locations in West Base and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner.